Lovely to be here with everybody this evening. I'm going to give you the option tonight. If you'd like to lie, you are more than welcome to lie. If you'd like to sit, you are more than welcome to sit. You do whatever feels right for you in this moment. So I want you to just make sure as you begin to let yourself settle, that you just take some time to just notice how you've placed your body and observing any parts of you where there might be any form of discomfort or sensation that doesn't feel that comfortable for you. And knowing that any point through this practice, you can allow yourself to shift and move into a more comfortable state of being. That's what this practice is all about, is finding comfort. I want you to just take some time to observe the sensation of your body and the surfaces that are supporting or holding your body. That could be the floor, it could be the mat, it might be a bolster or a blanket or a cushion. But just notice how it feels for your body to feel held in this moment. Allowing ourselves to step away from some of the strain or pressure that might be going on in our day-to-day lives and creating some space for yourself, some time for you. And acknowledging that you've made it here this evening and that this time that you have created can be for whatever you need it to be for. Maybe you just need some time to unwind. Maybe this is a preparation for a decent night's rest or sleep. Maybe there's some very specific reasons why you're here. But whatever your reasons are for being here, know that all of our reasons are welcome and know that all of our reasons are good enough for us all to be here this evening. I'd like you to turn your attention to your breath. And just for the next couple of rounds of breath, I want you to breathe deeply into your lungs. And as you breathe out, maybe yawn or sigh or release the breath, maybe out of the mouth. Just repeat that a couple more times. And as you breathe out, it's almost as though there's this conscious effort involved in the body and the mind that allows you to let go. Let go of the day that you may have had. Let go of some of those things that might be flying around in your mind at this time. To let go of any discomforts that you may feel in your body. And then when you feel ready, just let your breath return to a more natural state for itself. And I want you to just begin to follow the breath. So following the in-breath, the pause at the top of the in-breath, the out-breath, and the pause at the top of the out-breath. Just noticing how your breath is in this very moment. How your breath comes and goes. How it responds and reacts to the environment, to the sensations that we feel. to the thoughts that pass through our minds, to the memories, to the projections into the futures. And how breath through this practice could be something that you can keep coming back to, almost like an anchor for your awareness. The breath being the most consistent thing in all of our lives. So just noticing how your breath is and how your relationship is to your breath at this time. And as we move through this practice this evening, we're going to be making various different shapes with our body. And as we make those shapes with our body, those shapes are going to put a little bit of pressure maybe on the lungs or on other organs or parts of the body. And you might notice the breath changes. It might alter, it might differ. And I want you to just notice in each posture how the breath is and how you can allow yourself to feel that little bit more at comfort, a little bit more at ease. So you can breathe in a slightly more freer way. So when you begin to feel ready, what I'd like you to start to do is just begin to let a bit of movement come into the body. If you have been sitting, I'm going to invite you to come and join those of us that are lying down. You might find yourself just wanting to have a little stretch through the body, maybe stretching the arms or stretching the legs. Maybe there's a little bit of a rock that wants to happen through the pelvis or through the knees or the lower back. And then what I'd like you to do is just bring your legs gently in towards your body. So you're going to bring corresponding hands onto corresponding knees. Bring your big toes, so they're just going to touch, and begin to just circle your knees around. So rather than doing them both together, see if you can take both the knees away from each other and then circle them back towards each other. So if you were to imagine you were doing a little bit like a sort of breaststroke type position or movement with your hips and your pelvis, you'd be kind of doing the right sort of thing. So we're just circling around on those hip joints, just allowing the lower back to just kind of move in the way that correspond with how the legs are moving. Then we're going to go in the opposite way. Again, just gently circling around. Just exploring how that feels in that rotational movement with the hips. And then what I'd like you to do is allow your feet now to separate and just draw your knees out to the side. So if you use your hands, and if you've got your hands either around the back of the legs or over the kneecaps, you're just lightly separating the legs away from each other. Just letting those knees just drop out as wide as you can reach out towards the left and the right sides of the body. So we're just gently stretching across that inner groin area. And what some of you might want to do is, rather than holding the knees or the back of the thighs, is you might even want to hold on to your ankles, your shins, or even the soles of your feet. So again, we're just using a little bit of that pressure from the arms just to help to lightly separate the feet and the legs away from each other. For those of you that might feel a little bit more comfortable in this position, you could always consider bringing the hands onto the soles of the feet and just pushing the legs lightly down with the hands. So you're in a bit more of a sort of, bit like a frog sort of position. It's called the straddle. But any of these positions are going to help to really start to gently release that connective tissue through the inner groin area, so the abductor muscles. And again, here's a really great opportunity for you to maybe just observe how the breath is. And notice if from how you were lying before to how you are in this new shape with your body, if your breath feels any different at all. Just for the last few moments of this practice, you might just want to roll your head from left to right. There's a gentle, slow roll. So you just sort of rolling the back of the head across the mat. Just exploring how that feels through the neck on each side, to the front and the back of the neck area. Just helping to loosen up a little bit of that connective tissue through and around that neck area. And then when you've had enough, bring the head back to the center, and then just let the legs gently come back together. Place your feet on the floor, just so your knees are just gently drawing up towards the ceiling. I'd like you to cross your right thigh over your left leg. So you're crossing the legs essentially. And then if you feel you need to, is place a bolster to your left-hand side. And what this bolster could do is catch the legs as we start to bring those legs over towards that left-hand side. So we're coming into a spinal twist here, rolling onto that left hip very slightly on the left-hand side of the body. You might even want to use your left hand and just place it on that right knee or thigh. Maybe you've put a bolster there and you sort of resting the legs and the hand on the bolster. And then see how it feels to just gently turn your head in the opposite direction. And then options here could be for that right arm is to just stretch it along the floor, roughly at chest height. You might want to reach that right arm up a little bit higher above your head. So you're just stretching a little bit more through that right side of the body. You might want to bend your right elbow and lift your head up and place your hand underneath the right hand side of your head. Just depends on how that side of the body is feeling, how tight it is, your mobility through the shoulder area, but also how that feels down more into the waist and into that right hand side of the hip. Now, if you find having the legs crossed feels too intense, you can uncross the legs and just bring one on top of the other, but still keeping them going over in that left hand direction. It just takes a little bit of pressure off the body if that starts to feel a little bit too intense, a little bit too much. So feeling where you can feel the sensation through the body. And it probably is all down through that right-hand side, depending on where you might experience tightness in your body. But what I'd like you to do is just, again, check in with your breath and just notice how you can soften the shape that you're making, how you can lessen the impact on your nervous system to allow your breath to feel a little bit calmer, a little bit softer, less forcing or effort involved. You may even feel that as you're breathing, there might be more of a sense of breathing into that right-hand side of the torso or the sort of lung area, more than the left-hand side, because the left-hand side is being slightly compressed because of the body almost kind of laying upon it. So as we always do with these postures, we're going to hold for a set period of time. If at any point you feel you need to move or shift, if something starts to feel a little bit more intense or you start to experience pain rather than sensation in the body, I want you to kind of admit defeat there and not force yourself to be in that place of pain any longer. So when you feel ready, I'd like you to just gently roll your head back to the center to begin. Your right arm, just bring it back down by your side, maybe turning the palm downwards so you can push into the floor on the right side. And then if the legs are still crossed, then uncross them and just gently roll yourself back to where we started from. You might find that naturally you feel like you want to sort of hug the legs in towards you. You might want to stretch the legs away. Just kind of depends on what's going on in your body and how you feel like you want to sort of respond to that side stretch that we just did a moment ago. So just giving yourself just a moment or two just to kind of bring yourself back into a more neutral position through the body. And then when you feel ready, we're going to bend the knees, bringing the feet back onto the floor. And then we're going to cross our left leg over our right leg. So again, you might want to utilize a bolster or something to bring the legs onto. So maybe popping that on that right-hand side. And then you're going to just let the legs just begin to drift over towards that right-hand side. And as you do that, you'll feel yourself leaning or bringing a little bit more of your weight into the right-hand side more than the left-hand side. You might have even rolled slightly onto your right hip. Your right hand is going to just gently rest on that left leg or that left knee, or maybe on the support that you've put underneath it. And then if it feels okay, see how turning the head in the opposite direction, facing over towards the left-hand side, may feel. And then your left arm, you might want to stretch it out at chest height. You might want to slide it up a little bit higher than the head. So we're accentuating that sense of stretch through that left-hand side of the rib cage. Or similar to what I suggested on the right, you might find it more comfortable to bend the elbow and bring the head into the cup of that left hand. Again, going through that process of firstly just checking in with the sensations that you're feeling. And do those sensations feel manageable to you? If they feel unmanageable and like it feels like it's going to be an effort or a chore to stay here, then I want you to allow yourself to just back out a little bit. So we haven't got to be in that pace of discomfort. A little bit of discomfort is okay, but we don't want to be in a place of discomfort that may turn into pain and cause our nervous systems to start to get agitated. Check in how the breath is. The breath, again, being this anchor of the amount of effort that we're putting in here. Noting if the breath feels easier or a little bit more challenged on this side compared to the other side, or maybe even compared to other positions that we've been in previously. And you might want to almost imagine that you're breathing into that left hand side of the lung cavity a little bit more than the right hand side, or maybe your breath is kind of being breathed into that left hand side of the body. Maybe noting where you might be holding effort. And sometimes we can hold it in fingers or toes. We might be holding it around our abdominal area. Sometimes we can be sort of really sort of clenching our abdominal muscles. You might find it in your face. And maybe you're scrunching up your face. Maybe you're biting your teeth together or pushing the tongue into the mouth or behind the back of the teeth. So just a couple more moments of breath in this reclining twist. And then when you begin to feel ready, just gently begin to allow yourself to roll out of this position. So you're really taking your time. Try not to force anything to kind of go too quickly. Kind of allowing yourself to just feel into how the body feels like it would like to react or respond as it starts to release. So it might be that you just want to sort of hug your knees in. You might want to do a bit of rocking around through the body. You might find yourself just naturally wanting to sort of stretch or yawn or sigh. You might just need to be really still for this moment. So just allowing yourself to really follow what it is that you are feeling at this time. So from this position, what I'd like you to do is just gently begin to roll yourself over towards one side. And we're gently going to push ourselves up, bringing ourselves into a seated position. Now, you might want your bolster and you might want your block. So maybe just bring them a little bit closer if you can reach them. So we're going to bring our legs back into a straddle type position. So you're going to take the legs relatively wide out to the side. And if you find yourself, when you come into the straddle position, if you feel you need to put something underneath the back of the knees, then a rolled up blanket or a couple of cushions or something can be really useful. You can sort of pop something underneath the back of the hamstrings. That can just give a little bit of softness to the body. And then we're going to put our bolster directly in front of ourselves. But what I want you to do is bring your left leg in towards your right leg before you place the bolster in front of you, because that left foot is just going to sort of be just sort of nestled in. So then you're going to put your bolster maybe in front of that left leg or in front of that left foot. And then what we're going to do is start off by sitting up in this upright position. And then we're going to begin to just gently lean towards the bolster. So it might be as you start to lean, you might just find actually this feels about as far as what I want to lean at this moment. You might feel quite a tightening down the back of that right leg. You might find it more in that left inner hip area. But some of you might start to find actually, you know what, my body doesn't mind being in this position. So you might find yourself wanting to lean forwards a little bit more. You may actually find this right leg might be a little bit better being bent rather than being outstretched. You might find that actually helps to come forwards a little bit more. So knowing there's lots of sort of options and things that you can play around with. Now, some of you might actually find that you can get quite low towards that bolster. So you might even find using your forearms or bringing your elbows into the bolster and using your hands, to rest your head into can feel quite a good thing. Or you might just want to cross your forearms and bring your head sort of down towards your forearms. Some of you might even get your head onto the bolster. We're just letting ourselves just come forwards in this position, which in the yin practice is called the half dragonfly position. It's a really useful position that helps to, one, we slightly offset the hip joints and the pelvis. So we're kind of stretching them in different ways. One of them, the right leg's got an outward rotation. The left hip has got a slight inward rotation because of the way that we've placed our foot. So it just helps to gently stretch out into that sacroiliac joint. Great thing to do if maybe we've spent time behind a desk or sitting a lot today, or maybe you've been up on your feet a lot today and been rushing around. So this half dragonfly, what we're actually going to do is start to turn this into a bit more of a side stretch. So what I'd like you to do now is bring your bolster and you're going to place it on the outside edge of your right leg. And then we're going to lean into that bolster. And you might either sort of bring your hand onto the top of the bolster, or you might be able to reach around and maybe take hold of a foot or an ankle. But we're going to lean that right elbow into that support and then take our left arm and just drape it over the top of our heads. So we're not trying to reach out for anything. We're just utilizing the shape and the kind of almost the sort of effort that we have to put in to hold ourselves up against gravity, to just begin to start to stretch through that left hand side of the body a little bit more. So you might find your neck and your head just naturally sort of starts to turn. So you might end up looking down a little bit more. You might prefer to just stay more in the center. Some of you might want to turn and look upwards slightly, but just kind of follow where the natural rotation of your body is going. If this left arm starts to feel a bit tired, you can always just bring it down by your side. You can pop it behind your back. You might even reach over and just place it on your right forearm or on your right leg. So we've still got this side stretch happening. but just a little bit less impact on that left shoulder joint if you find that a struggle. So just be a couple more breaths here. And then wherever your left hand is, just place it back on your left thigh again. And then just gently push into that thigh and push yourself up. So just taking a few moments just to sort of let yourself just kind of re-feel back into the spine again, how that feels through the side body. Checking in with the breath again and just noticing how the breath is in that sort of halfway point between the dragonfly and side stretch on the other side. So when you feel ready, we're going to stretch our left leg out, bring our right leg towards ourselves. And again, we're going to start off with that bolster right in the center. So it's just in front of that right foot. And then we're going to start to just gently let ourselves just begin to lean. Maybe you hinge at the waist, maybe you round more through your back. Again, you can utilize ways that you can bring your arms or your hands to maybe support your head or your upper body a little bit more. Maybe it feels more appropriate for you to not have this left leg straight, but have it slightly bent, so the foot on the floor and you're leaning forwards. So just kind of playing around with maybe what feels right on this side for your body. Again, remembering that we are trying to avoid any significant discomfort. We don't want to move into any pain in this practice. And pain can be sometimes these sort of stabbing or shooting pains. It can be a sensation of quite significant burning. It can be when something just kind of feels like you can't tolerate it. Everything that we're doing here should be tolerable. So a little bit of discomfort is okay, but not to that point of excess. Just checking in with our breath in this half dragonfly position. Just a couple more moments here. And when you feel ready, we're going to push ourselves back up and out of that half dragonfly. And then we're bringing our bolster around the outside of that left leg. So it's going to be a really convenient place for us to bring our left elbow onto. We're going to lean into that left bolster or left-hand side onto that bolster. And then if it feels okay, you might want to take that right arm up and overhead. You might find yourself kind of stretching, keeping the arm quite straight. You might prefer to do a bit of a sort of curve and a drape with the arm. You might bring the hand around the back of the head. You might rest the hand on the thigh or even across the body. So essentially, we're stretching through this right-hand side, lateral stretch through this right side of the body. With that left hand, you might even want to hold those left toes. Some of you might be able to do that, or you might be more comfortable just keeping the hand away from the leg. There's less temptation sometimes to want to get to anywhere. This yin practice being all about a journey rather than a destination that we're trying to get to. what tends to happen is we will notice one side will feel stiffer than the other side. That's perfectly natural. We tend to have one side that is more dominant. We tend to have one side that we will use more than the other. This can be affected by what hand we tend to lead with, sometimes by injuries or surgeries that we might have had, sometimes just by habit, just by the way that we've always done things. And what could be lovely about this yoga practice is just allowing ourselves to firstly notice our habits and recognizing if those habits are sometimes ones that may support us, but sometimes ones that we might feel actually, you know what, that habit's maybe ready to move on. Maybe it isn't that healthy or doesn't suit me that well anymore. And we get to make a choice about what we'd like to do with it, if anything. So just a couple more moments here. And then when you feel ready, just gently begin to just peel yourself lightly away from that position, coming into our upright position. And again, just kind of let your body just sort of move where it wants to move. Maybe there's some movement you need to do through the shoulders. Maybe the upper back really feels like it needs to round a little bit. We're going to come into another twist actually. So if you feel like you want to twist, know that we're going to do that next. So we're going to stay sitting on our blanket or bolster or block if we were sitting on one. I want you to stretch your left leg away from you now. And then we're going to cross our right leg over our left leg. So what we want to make sure is both of our sitting bones are feeling quite sort of supported and are feeling sort of equally distributed into the seat that we're sitting upon. Then we're going to bring our left arm, we're going to wrap it around that right leg, and we're going to bring that right leg as close as we can in towards our body. So we've got an inward rotation happening through our hip joint. You might start to feel it in your glute a little bit or around your lower back region. And then we're going to stretch our right arm up to the ceiling. So get as much space as you can between that right glute and the right fingertips. And then we're going to circle that right hand back behind us and bring that right hand onto the floor back behind you. Turn your gaze and look over your right shoulder, so your back shoulder. If you're struggling with that leg over the other one, you can always bring the foot into the inside of the leg rather than keeping it on the outside. For some people, it feels a little bit more comfortable to do that instead. So we're just letting our gaze just gently look over that right shoulder, looking into the far right corners of our eyes. Now, if you've got your eyes closed, you could still imagine that you are looking into the far right corners of your eyes, even with your eyes closed. So we've kind of got this rotation happening from the eye sockets all the way down through the spinal column. So I want you to keep your body exactly where it is, but you're just going to turn your head now. And I want you to turn your head and look over your left shoulder. So look all the way over your front shoulder as far as you can. And if possible, look into the far left corners of your eyes. It's almost as though you're looking past your left shoulder. And then we've got a left turn to the upper part of the back, and then a right turn through the lower part of the back. Keep drawing that right shoulder, that back shoulder, gently away from that right ear. Last little thing you could consider doing here is tilting your left ear towards your left shoulder. So by doing this, you'll start to just get a little bit of a stretch, maybe a big stretch through that right side of the jaw, the right side of the throat. I tend to find I want to just move my mouth around a little bit, move my tongue around a little bit, and it just helps to sort of soften some of that connective tissue around the right side of the neck, leading across that shoulder area. So then we're going to pick our head back up to the center, open your eyes and look directly ahead. So you're just looking out towards your horizon. And then let's unwind ourselves coming out of this position, sliding that right leg away from you. You're going to do exactly the same on the left side. So you're going to bring your left leg up towards you. If it feels comfortable, step that left foot over the right foot, but you can certainly keep it on the inside of that right leg as well. This time our right arm is going to wrap around our left leg, and we're going to draw that left leg as close as we can in towards our torso. Our left arm, we're going to extend it up towards the ceiling. Take an inhalation and elongate through that left-hand side of the body, and then circle that left hand back behind you, placing it upon the floor. We're going to turn our gaze and look over our left shoulder. So we're looking into the far left corners of your eyes. So we're really twisting through the spine in quite a deep way. The twist that we did before, where we had our legs crossed and we were lying on our back, we were twisting more through the lower part of our back. This is more mid and upper parts of our back. Again, just checking in with the breath. Notice if you're using unnecessary effort to hold yourself here. Inviting that sense of ease or softness into your approach. Keep the torso exactly how it is, but just turn your head, look all the way over your right shoulder, and then look into the far right corners of those eyes. So again, we've got that left shoulder drawing back. We've got the head turning towards that right-hand side. If you feel that left shoulder starting to pop up a little bit, just gently draw it back down. Allow the breath, allow the approach of being soft and kind towards yourself to just create a little bit of space through that left side of the neck. And the last thing we're going to do is just tilt the head. So you're bringing right ear to right shoulder. You might find this feels quite intense through that left side of the throat, jaw area. Again, you might just want to just move your mouth around a little bit. Maybe move the tongue around a little bit. You might find just a tiny little sort of wobble of the head. It just helps to gently release some of that connective tissue. Just tiny little movements just help to soften and potentially reduce some of that tightness in the body. And then when you feel ready, just lift the head up, open the eyes, and just look straight ahead. And then allow yourself to just gently unwind from this position. So we're going to use our bolster again. I want you to pop your bolster towards the top end of your mat. And then what we're going to do is come and lie on our front. We're going to come into crocodile pose, but with a slight elevation. So you're going to utilize the bolster, bring your forearms and cross your forearms on top of the bolster, and then bring your forehead onto your forearms. So if this feels too high, now you can reduce the height. So you could use a blanket rather than the bolster. You could use a pillow rather than a bolster. If it still feels too intense, get rid of all of the height and just use your forearms. You haven't got to injure this at all. So by coming into this position, we'll get a gentle stretch across the front of the abdominal area, a very slight compression into our lower back region. If you're finding that it's maybe a little bit intense on your lower back, the wider you take your feet, the less kind of pressure that it will put on your lower back. Sometimes this can take a little bit of time just to get used to this position. Sometimes having our arms in this position doesn't feel that comfortable for us. So if you find it's uncomfortable, you could always take the elbows a little bit wider and just maybe rest your forehead on the bolster and just have your arms just sort of hanging over the bolster rather than feeling like you have to cross them and bring them on top of each other. That can just be a little bit of a gentler way of doing this. What can feel quite nice about this is where the forehead is supported. Some people sometimes find crocodile can be a little bit claustrophobic because you've got the floor quite close to the face. Whereas this variation just allows for a little bit more space. So hopefully you won't be so affected if you do suffer with claustrophobia. And again, I want you to go back to really focusing on the coming and the going of your breath. And maybe even revisiting that very simple way of breathing that we considered at the start of the practice around just observing the in-breath, the pause, the out-breath, and the pause. Just noticing how that is for you, how that plays out for you. So if you wanted to, just for the last couple of, say, 30 seconds of this practice, you could go a little bit deeper into this back bend just by lifting your head off of the forearms and just kind of bringing your elbows and forearms slightly closer together. So you're just utilizing the arms and the shoulders and just gently lifting the head away from that bolster slightly. So you're in a slightly deeper back bend. Again, if that feels too intense, feels too much, you can always back down into that supported crocodile or all the way back into crocodile with the head on the floor. So we need to counterpose this position before we come into our relaxation. And we're just going to utilize child's pose. So I'm going to suggest take your bolster with you, turn it so it's long ways, and then push back towards your heels, drag the bolster towards you, and then just let yourself just lay or rest upon the bolster. So again, head could be turned flat, or you might even want to turn your head one way or another just to utilize resting upon that bolster and just bringing the back into a slightly more natural position for most people, being in this slight forward fold and counterposing that back bend that we've just done. If you've got your head turned, I'm just going to invite you to turn your head the other way, just so we're equally using both sides of the neck and the muscles of the head. Again, sometimes we get into habits where we sleep or when we're resting and we bring ourselves into a familiar, comfortable position, but we don't tend to do it in the opposite way, particularly if we're sometimes side sleepers rather than lying on our backs or on our fronts. And then when you feel ready, I'd like you to just gently slide your hands either sides of the bolster and just gently push yourselves up. If you're using the bolster, you might just want to spin it around again so you can have it to support your legs. If you need to put in anything else to help to keep the warmth in or to cover yourself, excuse me, please do allow yourself to do that. If you prefer to lie on your side, if you prefer to sit, know that all of those options are available to you as well. You do not have to lie down. If you find yourself maybe find it difficult to internalize if there's light near you, you might want to use a eye pillow just to place across the eyes. People like to use a hood just over the head just to block out a little bit of light and add a bit of extra comfort. So again, just taking a few moments just to let the body just kind of feel into how you've placed it. And again, if there's any shifting or movement that you need to make to allow yourself to feel just that little bit more comfortable, I would encourage you to do that. Again, once more, turning your attention to the surfaces that are beneath you, the surfaces that are holding you. And allow yourself to know that it's okay to let go into those surfaces. We haven't got to hold ourselves. Once more, we're going to turn our attention back to our breath. And again, a bigger breath inwards and an audible breath out, releasing tension, held tightness or stress in the body. Just repeating that a few more times, breathing in and an audible breath out, just letting go of any held tension. Just repeating that a couple more times. And then when you feel ready, just allowing your breath to return back to a more natural rhythm and state for itself in this moment. And maybe continuing to breathe in that way for a little while longer feels the right thing for you to do. Again, this is your practice. We're going to do a really simple rotation of awareness around your body. We're going to start the rotation this evening at the very top of your head. So I want you to just be aware of the very crown of your head. And then move your attention to your eyebrow center. Be aware of the point at the center of your eyebrows. And then draw your attention down to the area at the center of your throat. And then moving your attention over to your right shoulder joint. Then to your right elbow joint. To your right wrist joint. And then to the tip of your right thumb. The tip of your right first finger. Second finger. Third finger. And little finger. And then from your awareness at the tip of the thumb and the fingers of the right hand, move your attention back to your right wrist, your right elbow, to the right shoulder, and then back to the center of your throat. Moving your awareness now over to your left shoulder, then down to your left elbow, to your left wrist, and to the tip of your left thumb, your left first finger, second finger, third finger, your left little finger. An awareness of the thumb and all of the fingertips. And then moving your attention back up to the left wrist, elbow, shoulder, back to the center of the throat. Then moving your attention down to the very center of your chest. Moving your awareness over to the right hand side of your chest. Then back to the center of your chest. Then moving the attention over to the left hand side of the chest. And then back to the center of the chest. Moving your awareness now down to your navel center. And then moving your attention to the center of the pelvis. Moving your attention to the right hip joint, to the right knee joint, the right ankle joint, then to the tip of your right big toe, the right second toe, the right third toe, the right fourth toe, to the tip of your right little toe. Then moving your attentions back from the tips of the toes, back up to the right ankle, the right knee joint, the right hip, and then back to the center of the pelvis. Moving your attentions over to your left hip joint, to the left knee joint, to your left ankle joint, to the tip of your left big toe, the left second toe, third toe, fourth toe, the left little toe. And then moving your attentions back up from those left toes to the left ankle, the left knee, the left hip, back to the center of the pelvis, to your navel center, your chest center, your throat center, your eyebrow center, and then bringing your attention back to the very top of the head. And then allow yourself to be aware of each of those points that we've just journeyed to. An awareness of the whole of your body. Every single one of those points. Feeling at ease, feeling rested. I'd like you to turn your awareness to your breath again. And go back to observing those 4 different points of the breath. The inhale, the pause after inhale, the exhale, and the pause after exhale. Just observing that cycle of your breath. As you breathe in, the pause. As you breathe out, and the pause. I'd like you to begin to just let yourself just start to become just a little bit more aware of your surroundings again. And as you start to become aware of those surroundings, just very gradually begin to feel back into the body. And if it's appropriate for you at this time, just begin to let yourself just gently move in whatever way feels right for you. You might just want to lightly move the head. You might want to move the fingers or the toes. You might want to move the arms or the legs. You might find yourself just naturally just stretching or yawning or sighing. Just beginning to maybe let yourself shift that little bit more. You might even want to just let yourself just gently roll to one side if you have been lying on your back. Maybe if you've been on your side, you might want to roll into another position. If you've been seated, you might want to change the way that you're sitting. And just very gradually beginning to allow yourself to come into a more upright position. So just taking your time. There's no rush to get there at all. As we come into our more upright position, we're going to touch our fingertips together. So each corresponding fingertips touches each other and the thumb tips touch each other. So you're making it almost like a sort of little sort of cage shape with your fingers, your hands, and just rest it in your lap. Or if you find it useful to just put something over your lap and just sort of rest your hands upon it. So we're using this mudra known as Hakini mudra as a way to just bring ourselves into a sense of balance and stability. Much of the practice that we've done this evening has been about really balancing our nervous systems, being really aware of our breath and the effect that these different shapes has on our breath and our response to the breath. And Hakini Mudra is said to allow our breath to come into a balanced state. So I'd like you to just spend just a couple of moments just allowing your in-breath and your out-breath to become equalized in their length, in their efforts. And by recognizing these ways that we can allow ourselves to feel a little bit more balanced, a little bit more grounded. When we do come across those times in our lives when sometimes we feel things are a little bit out of control, or sometimes when we feel like we've hit a bit of a speed bump and we're careering off in a different direction, just remembering these ways that we can bring ourselves back into a sense of wholeness. Sometimes we need to let our minds go in the ways that they need to go, but knowing that you can bring it back. Bring it back to our innate sense of being more calm, feeling balanced, and able to step forwards in a place that feels more grounded. So when you feel ready, I'd like you to move your hands out of Hakini Mudra and bring them into Amanjali Mudra. So you're just lightly pushing the left and the right hands together. Again, Amanjali Mudra is another mudra that helps kind of ground ourselves. It's almost as though you're bringing all of the parts of yourself together at the center. You may wish to just slightly bow your head towards your hands and just taking this time to acknowledge the care and the attention that we've shown to ourselves this evening. Also acknowledging the care and the attention that we've shown to each other by sharing this practice and sharing this space, whether it be in physical or through the internet. And taking this time to recognize by allowing ourselves to feel more at ease, more grounded, we also can be a bit more present for other people in our lives. Reminding ourselves that these practices are here to support, to nourish, and to guide us. And as you step off of your mat and go back into your day-to-day life, maybe acknowledging what it is that you're taking with you. What those little reminders have been that you've picked up this evening. So thank you so much for all being here this evening. Om Shanti. So please do just take your time, take as long as you need to bring yourself out of this practice. I thank you all for being here.